Volatile, had a mean temper, could be nasty to people, especially to subordinates.
His reprimands were very serious and were strong, and he has a forceful character.
He's always struck me, he came across to me as a vain man, very concerned about his self-image, very concerned, really, about that people should know that he was a holy man.
My children, my words are spiritual words, words of love for everyone. I've never in my life wished evil upon anyone. I only want what's good for everyone.
If you think of him as a loving father, then you tend to forgive them and just sort of, chalk it up to him being a character. If you think of him as somebody who's running a secretive, controlling organization, then you would see it as another kind of, deep-seated personality flaw.
Today, Escriva's greatest legacy is Opus Dei's 87,000 members, but many of their practices have raised suspicion and skepticism. Today, among America's 67 million Catholics, there are 3,000 members of Opus Dei. These conservative Catholics are few in number, but familiar as your next-door neighbor.
I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a plastic surgeon, and I am a member of Opus Dei.
I am Vice President of Human Resources.
I'm a college president.
I'm an educator, a coach.
I'm a retired guy, I'm an engineer, I run around a lot.
You get the full gamut, I think, of personalities and professions. The one thing we have in common is we want to live our faith on a serious basis every day.
So how does one become an Opus Dei member?
Most members of Opus Dei, their first encounter is not through sensationalist TV programs or newspaper articles. It's through reading the works of Escrivá, introduced to them by other believing Catholics.
Opus Dei also actively recruits Catholic college students who are invited to attend retreats and other spiritually themed gatherings.
Evangelization is a mission of the church. It's not something that Opus Dei invented. Every Christian is called to evangelize. We're called to spread the message of Christ.
People have charged over the years that they are deceptive about it, that they will sometimes bring people into their orbit before really telling them that this is Opus Dei, that they will pressure them to make profound life commitments before they really understand what it's about.
We were always being encouraged to get more members, make friends, bring them into formation somehow, bring them around the center, try to find out where they are in their spiritual life. Do they have the qualities to become a member of Opus Dei?
Opus Dei denies that it exerts any undue pressure. They say potential candidates endure a lengthy period of spiritual study before gaining full membership.
From the very first formation that I went to, I wanted to join Opus Dei immediately, and they wouldn't let me. They said, not yet, slow down, take your time, you need to learn more about us.
When someone joins Opus Dei, they have a 6.5-year period in which they say, yes, I want to go ahead for another year, I do not want to go ahead for another year. So they are free to remain in the work and they're free to leave.
There are a variety of membership categories. There's the supernumerary, 70% of the total membership, comprised of married couples like Doug and Shirley Hinderer, with their family of 9 children.
I look at Catholicism as a framework for our life, and I think I look at Opus Dei almost as the color in it. It really helped us to look at who we were in more than just a couple and more than just a parent. I mean, it gave us a really well-rounded look at our lives as human beings, as Catholics, as parents.
They have a program of life, a spiritual program that they follow every day as Opus Dei members. They come together once a week for a kind of spiritual meditation and talk. The point is to receive the spiritual formation inside Opus Dei and then take that formation out into one's daily life.
The next largest category consists of the numerary. Nearly 30% celibate males and females who live in Opus Dei centers and whose vows of celibacy are a unique commitment in today's modern world.
These people have chosen to live a fairly controlled and disciplined life of spiritual sacrifice. If you've chosen to live that life, you've got to take it on its own terms. And by definition, that's going to be something that's hard for the outside world to understand.
A numerary member of Opus Dei usually has a profession which he exercises. I am a singer. I also conduct a choir. And then I'm involved in apostolic activities and also give spiritual guidance to some members of Opus Dei.
Much of that spiritual guidance takes place in the 60 Opus Dei centers in 19 cities across America. In New York, there's Murray Hill Place, the U.S. headquarters for Opus Dei. A $69 million building built with gifted pharmaceutical stock. Male and female members are completely segregated. There are separate entrances and residences.
We find that that works. We interface with men and women all the time. It's simply that our activities are done separately and we live in a separate environment.
We are a family to each other. It's like having 10 sisters that you actually get along with and don't steal their clothes. You know, we share all of the great ideals in common.
The numerary assistant is a distinct class of only women, some 5%, whose main tasks include the cooking, cleaning, and administration of Opus Dei centers.
They are homemakers, and they would see themselves playing the same role to the Opus Dei community as a regular mom does to her own family. And so for them, they see it as something that is extraordinarily fulfilling, not at all demeaning, and something that gives them great satisfaction.
Blessed art thou among women, and
It is their rigorous daily routine
Holy Mary,
that
Mother
separates
of God,
Opus Dei's members from other Catholic lay organizations. Members attend Mass and receive communion daily. Prayer is constant.
Holy Mary, Mother of God,
now and at the hour of our death.
Members recite a customized Opus Dei prayer in Latin called the Preces. The numeraries are Opus Dei's frontline spiritual soldiers who are available full-time to the organization. They are expected to give more than their hearts. They're expected to give most of their paycheck from their regular jobs.
All the numeraries of Opus Dei, we receive a salary and we pay from our salary. Obviously, we pay for our personal needs, you know, whatever our expenses may be. And as a rule, we give everything else to supporting Opus Dei and the apostolates.
In their defense, that's what the apostles did. The apostles lived sort of communally. The early Christian church did that. They cared for one another. So in a sense, you could say they're living more Christian than other Catholics are.
Perhaps the most controversial aspect of life in Opus Dei is the practice of corporal mortification, acts of self-denial or voluntary pain as penance, a kind of bodily sacrifice.
Amen. I think the first thing to understand about corporal mortification is that it is a spiritual discipline with a rich and long history in the Catholic Church, and that it is practiced by plenty of people outside Opus Dei. Mother Teresa used a small whip. Padre Pio used the hair shirt and the whip and the cilice. And it has always been understood by a certain kind of Catholic spirituality as a way to participate in the suffering of Christ on the cross. Secondly, as a reminder of the pain and suffering of the world, and a kind of taming of the flesh.
In the Da Vinci Code, the villain monk Silas practices a painful and bloody form of mortification. By most accounts, the Da Vinci Code's portrayal is exaggerated.
I think if they're getting their idea of what it is from the Da Vinci Code, I don't blame them for being repulsed. I'm repulsed by that.
Opus Dei's use of corporal mortification is traced directly to its founder. Unless you mortify yourself, you'll never be a prayerful soul. Blessed be pain, loved be pain, sanctified be pain, glorified be pain. Simple mortifications include everyday sacrifices such as fasting, cold showers, and sleeping on floors or wood boards without pillows.
A mortification is basically doing something that you really don't want to do, but you do it for the glory of God.
But it is the more extreme forms of mortification, practiced by the numeraries, that draw the most scrutiny.
These are the corporal mortification instruments that are used in Opus Dei. This is the discipline. They use it on their bare buttocks while they recite a Hail Mary. The cilice is like a barbed wire chain. They tie this around their thigh. They're encouraged to tie it tightly so that it digs into the skin. And they wear this for 2 hours every day except Sundays and feast days.
It's meant to be uncomfortable. That's the point of it. It's not something that, is meant to give one pleasure.
We do something hidden that nobody sees, that we don't complain about, that doesn't bother us very much, and we offer that to God. Now, why that should bother someone, so much. I really don't know.
This is the nature of the spiritual quest. It tends to lead people to do things that from a secular, modern point of view are difficult to understand and in some cases are a little repulsive.
There's an even hotter issue, the most incendiary charge leveled against the group, that Opus Dei is a cult. In recent decades, Opus Dei has been confronted with disturbing allegations that they are a dangerous cult. Virtually all the criticism is focused on the lifestyles of the deeply faithful numeraries who live in Opus Dei centers. Their mail is screened. Their media choices, books, films, and entertainment, need approval.
It's a controlled environment. It's an environment in which you're seldom by yourself. I started questioning in my own mind to what extent Opus Dei exerts influence and controls your life and your thinking and everything.
It was a fear of hell that allowed me to stay for so long. I've been told this was a divine vocation, and within the context of the church, if you abandon your vocation, you go to hell.
To have blind obedience and you're getting to the point where you don't question, there's where the cult difference comes. That's where it can get destructive and it's harmful to the individual.
How sad for a 17-year-old girl to give up her whole life, her whole family. For God, yeah, but for what?
Joining as a teenager in 1985, Colleen O'Neill cooked and cleaned as a numerary assistant at several Opus Dei centers across America.
When I joined Opus Dei, I was told you can't call your family and you can't visit them. And we don't make long-distance phone calls and we don't go visit them. So I was like, okay. And so I didn't do that.
When one takes on a commitment, especially if one has a celibate commitment to go anywhere and do anything for the service of God, that they may not be as available to their families as they were in the past.
And my parents freaked out, like, what the heck is going on, you know? How come you're not calling us? How come you're not visiting us?
When I hear these stories from parents of children that have joined Opus Dei and that have been cut off from their parents, I'm horrified. I mean, that is not what the Catholic Church is about.
Opus Dei denies that members are entirely cut off from their families.
They have another family, too, that they have acquired by free choice. They have commitments to that family, and they have to balance them like any married person who gets married and has to balance two families.
Despite some building doubt about her life commitment to Opus Dei, O'Neill faithfully served her vocation.
I'm in this forever, because you think God called you to this, and you know, come hell or high water, you're going to be faithful. You're going to stick it out for the rest of your life.
When you're dealing with the cult dynamic, there's total control of information, not only externally in the physical environment, but there's internal control in terms of one's communication with oneself.
You don't have the psychological freedom to leave, and that's almost like being in a prison that you don't know you're in, and you can't get out.
After 20 years inside Opus Dei, O'Neill made a traumatic decision.
I learned, hey, I'm under mind control here, and this just isn't right. And if my vocation was not from God and is not supernatural and divine, then what am I doing here?
In April 2005, O'Neill disappeared. Local police and the FBI thought she had been abducted. Actually, she was secluded in a hotel with a cult interventionist, hired by her family.
Colleen was a very typical intervention. She was disturbed inside, wanting to have some freedom, but at the same time not wanting to leave the group, not wanting to leave doing God's perfect will in her vocation.
You give up your life, you give up any money, you give up everything, absolutely everything. And once you're in, you're constantly reminded you gave everything to God.
It's true that there are people who have suffered because the question of vocation is often a question that involves the deepest, most intimate part of their being, and it's a tough question. And I really sympathize with them because at times they can put their whole life into a task and then they see it's not for them.
These are the Di Nicolas, Mother Diane and daughter Tammy. In 1987, Tammy was a freshman at Boston College, where she was recruited into Opus Dei and spent 2.5 years as a member.
When I was a member, I was required to fill out a statistical sheet about all the people that I was working on to join, and I had to hand that in every month and check off, you know, has this girl been to confession with an Opus Dei priest? Have you talked apostolically with her?
Tammy, like Colleen's family, used a cult interventionist to help break away.
The tragedy about Opus Dei is that they transform people into almost like their own robots in some ways, where you become so disassociated from your true feelings and who you truly are that you can shut out the people that nurtured you, that raised you, that love you.
In a crisis of conscience, her mother Diane began to connect with other Catholic families.
I'm just a mom who wanted to spare other families what my family went through. It was life-altering. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
In 1991, she created ODAN, the Opus Dei Awareness Network. Her message of education and support has been amplified by the internet, providing a forum for thousands.
We don't have millions of dollars. We're just a grassroots organization. And all the people who have been hurt by Opus Dei, the people that we thought we were a family of one back in the 1980s, the web is a tool for the truth. Finally, we have this thing that connects us.
She is trying to get people to look at some of the problems with the organization, and I think in many cases she has a point.
A large proportion of the members of Opus Dei don't have that experience, and that's why they hear these things. They say, well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Opus Dei denies the disturbing cult charges, but they acknowledge that over the years, there have been bruised souls.
There certainly must have been instances in the past when someone did not perform in the best way possible. But I do think that on a whole, people are trying to do their best.
I would like to express sorrow for any hurt that we may have offered to anyone, and sympathy for what they suffer. But at the same time, one has to understand it's a complex situation, and it's not something that I think the blame is easily fixed on one thing or another.
But these complex situations are compounded by what observers claim is a historical tendency for Opus Dei to conduct many of its affairs in secret. There are many people, holy people, who don't understand your way. Don't strive to make them understand. It would be a waste of time and would give rise to indiscretions.
Escrivá was so, I would say, almost paranoid about protecting the identity of Opus Dei. He was very, very leery about any kind of collaboration with any other groups in the church on the fear that Opus Dei would be assimilated to one of these other groups.
Opus Dei's financial affairs are also a private issue. There have been long-standing concerns about the size of its wealth and how that money influences the Catholic Church.
Usually what conspiracy theorists will say is that Opus Dei had come in, for example, with bags of cash to bail out the Vatican Bank because of its crisis in the late 70s.
In his revealing book, Opus Dei, Allen, with an independent church financial analyst, followed the money by examining thousands of documents, along with public records and paperwork submitted by Opus Dei.
The practical reality is that Opus Dei simply does not have the bags of cash that a lot of people imagine it does. If you look at the financial profile of Opus Dei, their total assets is about $340 million. Their total worldwide assets, the best estimate, is about $2.8 billion. Now, you compare that to a group like the Knights of Columbus, which is almost entirely an American organization, has a financial base that is some 3 times larger than Opus Dei. And yet nobody thinks that the Knights of Columbus are scheming to manipulate the election of the Pope or to control the inner workings of the Vatican.
Despite controversy and opposition, Opus Dei would be embraced by the Catholic Church when a popular Pope would grant it a special seal of approval. In 1978, an enormous media superstar for Catholicism emerged with the election of Pope John.